Yeah,
sort
I
of
think we are going
all
live. We are live. Hello. So let's just make this cool. We can get started.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Factors LinkedIn Live. Today, we have a very, very, very special guest. This is a person I have known for almost more than 10 years now. I have spent almost most of my waking hours spending time with him, or at least talking to him, or thinking about what he would say on certain things. So I have my co-founder Praveen Das here for the LinkedIn Live this time. And why this is unique is like on multiple occasions. Like we have never sat down to speak on a public forum like this. Second, this is the first LinkedIn Live of Praveen Das as well. So that's also a unique first which comes in. So very, very, very warm welcome, Praveen. So thanks a lot for joining us on the Factors webinar.
Yeah. Excited to be here. We work so closely with LinkedIn. I'm surprised I've never done this before. Yeah.
That's great. Cool. So the agenda for this webinar is LinkedIn Live is actually a pretty simple thing. We are going to talk about a new feature, and I think in the industry in B2B marketing or RevTech tools, this is one of the most unique features which is there. I think very few companies actually have this kind of concept, and I would actually practically say none other than us. And Praveen would be taking time to actually introduce us through the product and taking us through it. So that's what we are all about. Good.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for being here. So we're launching today in beta a feature called Segment Insights. This is something that internally we've been brainstorming, working on for a good 3 to 6 months actually. So I'm very excited to now have it out in the world and customers trying it out. The early customers that we've opened access for have had great reviews, and I'm really excited to showcase the hard work that we've put into everyone, and hear your feedback and how to make this better, more useful, etc. as well, right? It's a very
Awesome.
generic capability. I think it can be used for a wide set of use cases. But yeah.
But firstly, Praveen, why this feature? I mean, why did we build this feature in the context of B2B marketing?
Yeah. So if we take a step back, right, like when we started building Factors around 3 years back, so we've always had a focus and on analytics, right? And within analytics, one of the core focus areas for us has been measuring the impact of marketing initiatives. And that's a very challenging sort of topic because, as you know, especially in the B2B world, the buyer journeys are not linear. It takes a really long time. It's not like a person gets converted from a single ad or a single sort of touch point. So we've had multiple sort of versions of performance measurement. So one was a more traditional sort of attribution product which supported different kinds of attribution models. The other is our funnels product, which actually helps you understand like the customer journey. But as we spoke to more and more sort of enterprise customers, what we realized is one of the fundamental conflicts that those teams faced was that almost all of marketing measurement was centered around channels, campaigns, or assets. Vis-a-vis all the business sort of related measurements were around segments of accounts, right? Or you had, let's say, a certain strategic objective. So we have like one customer I was speaking to yesterday. They just have three objectives for this year, right? One is penetrate a new segment. So they don't sell to banking and insurance or financial services in general. So one of their core objectives is we want to penetrate that segment and start getting the first few customers, right? So they've kind of customized their product for that segment, and this is like a objective for them to kind of enter that segment. A second priority for them is to say the established verticals, which is software as a service, IT services. In their case, there they wanted to kind of push for higher sort of deal values. And hence they wanted to kind of measure what was the lift in ACV, right? So they wanted to kind of look at higher deal values, lower ACV pipeline for that segment. And a third priority for them was that they were already well established in Europe and North America, so they wanted to kind of grow their presence in Asia Pac, right? So this was the business sort of objective, and the marketing team was struggling to kind of report back on these sort of business priorities, right? So if you think of this, these are three different sort of segments. Banking and financial services accounts is one segment, Asia Pac accounts is another segment, and then accelerating in the traditional industries like SaaS and IT services for them was a third segment. And what they wanted to kind of do was measure the performance of each of these segments separately. So at its core, it is not a channel first view, it is a segment of accounts first view of reporting. And that is what we heard from them, right? And once we heard the same message from a lot more customers, that is when we decided to kind of build that out. And I believe this gives a more sort of complete picture of how the business is performing. So yeah, that's the sort of backstory, Sri, of how we decided to kind of build this feature out.
Oh, this is pretty amazing because traditionally B2B marketers, and as you mentioned, it's like always it's about like which channel you are spending on or how much you are spending per channel, how many campaigns you are running, or like what kind of creatives you are focusing on. But this turns around the metrics back into a more direct into a revenue or into a larger strategic questions around like we are spending money, but are we getting enough audience, or like how are we performing in this particular industry segment? How are we performing in this particular geography? How are we performing in this particular kind of like companies which are already existing customers or part of our ABM campaign, etc., or like old customers, etc. So it actually turns around the business logic more directly into sales and revenue, and that's pretty exciting. But one thing which also comes is like MarTech is a pretty kind of crowded space, and there are multiple tools and the same. Where do you think the existing MarTech tools, especially in the attribution or customer data platform, marketing analytics tools in B2B, are falling short, which is one of the reasons why we ended up starting to build this?
Yeah, so I think most of the current analytics tools take a channel first view of reporting, right? So they center around a channel. So it starts with search, social, keyword, content, etc. But in reality, most marketers are driving integrated campaigns, right? So like going back to the example that I took, if you want to kind of drive penetration in or drive adoption and get your early customers in the banking and financial services segment, a marketing team would then plan out a lot of sort of marketing initiatives centered around that. There could be search campaigns which are specific for banking and financial services industries. Let's say, for example, banking fraud or something like that, right? There could be LinkedIn campaigns, ABM campaigns, which are targeted at that vertical. There could be ebooks that they're promoting. There could be webinars that they're running. Maybe they'd have events that they are launching for that specific sort of vertical, right? So it's not really like one of those sort of initiatives which really kind of work out, but it's a combination of this integrated campaign. And that is how most enterprises actually think about it as well. So when we speak to companies which are north of like 100 million in revenue, they almost always think of integrated campaigns rather than isolated campaigns, right? And in case of integrated campaigns, it's really, I personally feel it is not a great way to then kind of slice it into like an individual channel. But rather than that, just focus on that segment to say you wanted to move the needle on 3-4 metrics for this particular segment, let's say banking and financial services. And then what you track is, as a result of all of the activities that you did you actually kind of move those metrics the way you want, right? So our segment insights capability aligns very well with the whole idea of running integrated campaigns. And it would be most beneficial for companies who are actually running such sort of involved planned campaigns, right? As compared to, let's say, if you're just on Google search and that's like your primary channel, then probably this is not as relevant. But for anyone who's kind of running integrated sort of campaigns, I believe this is probably the best way to kind of look at performance measurement.
Nice. It's pretty interesting. So what you're saying is like for a company which, let's say, does a offline event for specific folks of insurance industry or a particular telecom industry, etc. Plus, they also run specific LinkedIn campaigns only for that telecom executives and people within that industry. And they also do Google campaigns and a Facebook campaign, maybe even a programmatic campaign also parallelly to give a surround sound effect. This is like multi-touch campaigns. Instead of just taking how did Google search campaign convert into leads or how a LinkedIn campaign convert into leads, you take like for this segment where all these campaigns are run, how is the kind of performance which are coming up? That's something which we'll be able to automatically see.
Yeah. And the other thing that also naturally does is it kind of breaks this distinction between marketing efforts and sales efforts as well. So you're essentially looking at a particular segment and seeing, for all the effort that we put in over there, were we able to kind of move the needle in terms of the performance, right? So that way, you're not really getting into like sort of individual sort of teams, etc. You're centered still around the business objectives, right? And most of the conversations that I've had with customers who have really appreciated it, it's come from the RevOps teams and the marketing ops teams who take a channel agnostic sort of business centric view. And they have to report on these business metrics at a segment level, right? So what I've realized is most of these business metrics are things that these companies have to report to their board or to their executive teams, etc. And today they're kind of piecing it together from across like various sort of tools. And what we aspire to do is give them like a single sort of screen where they can see all of these metrics.
So in terms of these business metrics, what would they be? I mean, sales metrics, revenue, pipeline, etc., or what would?
Yeah, so we're starting off with a set of marketing and sales metrics. Maybe this is a good point to kind of segue and do like a quick walkthrough of the product.
Yes. Yeah, that will be great. I think it's a good time to actually showcase the product as well.
Yeah. So
and actually, one thing which I think, a thought which was actually going through me is like we are getting towards a utopian sales marketing alignment in some level.
Yeah. So just kind of sharing my screen here. Yeah. So you're able to see my screen?
Not. Yes, it's come. I just added it to the stage. Yes, it's now visible completely there.
Okay. So this is how the Factors product, right? And so what you start with is this whole account screen over here. And on the left, what you see are segments that we have created. And these are segments which we care about as a business, right? And so you can see a whole bunch of segments that we have created. We've created individual segments for each person and each region, etc., right? And within that, you can see which are these accounts, what's the sort of level of engagement of these accounts. Accounts are categorized into hot, warm, cool, etc., which is the first page that they've seen, which is the first channel that they came from. So you get a whole bunch, you get a bird's eye view of the entire sort of accounts that you are tracking over here. What you can also then do is you can build segments, right? So if you build segments, so this is how the segmentation sort of screen looks like. So you can essentially build segments such as, industry equals business services and technology, FI range is these, and accounts which have visited your pricing page in the current quarter, right? And you again get to see all the main accounts, what's their engagement level, what are the top engagement signals, like what are the key actions that these accounts have done, etc. Right? So this is how you build segments in Factors, and these segments can be built using all of your data, right? Like so one differentiating aspect of Factors is that we bring in your website data, de-anonymized at a company level. We bring in your LinkedIn data, G2 data, CRM data, marketing automation data. So all of that. So if you want to look at G2, LinkedIn, HubSpot, if you use Salesforce, you can bring in that as well. And then you can build these segments which kind of reflect the business priorities for you, right? And once you build the segment, you get to see this Insights tab over here. So you have two views, which is a list view, which gives you all the accounts that are part of the segment, and the Insights view, which tells you some essential reporting about the segment, right? Now, I've already opened up them just to kind of make it easier. So this is essentially a segment which says engaged on LinkedIn, which is basically that these accounts have ads from Factors on LinkedIn, right? As I said, if I want to see the list, I can see that these are the companies and all of the information that I need about them. And if I switch over to the Insights tab, I get to see a whole bunch of reports around, how many accounts are currently in this segment, how many of these accounts have reported very high engagement as on date, right? Further, how many leads have we got from the segment, and how does that compare against the previous time frame? So we've got 755 leads from the segment, which is like 66% more than the same time, the prior period. How many SQLs have we got from the segment? How many opportunities have been created? How much pipeline has been created? All of these are sort of marketing metrics. And then you also get your sales metrics in the same sort of pane, which is to say, what is the average deal size? How much is the revenue that is being booked? What is the close rate? So if you want to so for example, for this segment, our close rate has actually declined from like 28% to like 14%, right? And what is the average sales cycle length as well, right? So in one shot, for a particular, any segment that you care about, a segment of accounts where you're putting like dedicated sort of ABM focus, these could be accounts that you invested a lot of effort and energy into. You're able to see in one shot all the sort of key marketing metrics and the key sales metrics, right? Now, again, this is like one example of like a segment. Another, so what this segment allows me to do is to say, okay, we've much revenue last quarter from LinkedIn and so much pipeline. I'm able to kind of correlate that against the spend that I had on LinkedIn to say, ballpark, I spent, let's say, $50,000 and I generated so much of revenue and pipeline, right? You could also,
a kind of, this is like a ROI report, or like, for example, you spend on LinkedIn. If you want to know how's your LinkedIn efforts have actually generated in terms of pipeline, it's an immediate, simple view which you can actually showcase to your management, saying that, okay, I generated so much pipeline in this period from my LinkedIn ads.
Yes.
So if anyone is asking, like, you're spending $20,000 on LinkedIn, we can very clearly say, like, for $20,000, we created revenue booked of $168,000.
Yeah. And in addition to just reporting, let's say, cost to revenue, what you're able to say is, what is our win rate like? What is the average sales cycle like? So you're able to have a more nuanced conversation rather than just saying, I spent $20,000 and I got so much of pipeline. You're able to kind of talk about, other metrics that the business kind of cares about, right? Now, so all of these are obviously configurable. So I've set this up for my own sort of instance, but you can kind of change this. So all of this you can change and say, for MQLs, I want to kind of use a specific sort of definition. So you can kind of do that. So this is completely configurable for your business use cases. So the way different companies QLs, SQLs, revenue, etc. is very different. They use different fields, different stages, etc. So you can kind of optimize this to work for your business, right? And the other thing you can do is you can look at, for example, tier one accounts is, for us, I've defined software and technology companies within certain employee ranges, right? And again, okay, within that segment, how much pipeline have we created, and what is our close rate, etc. Right? Now, I can easily compare this against another segment like tier 2 accounts. So we have another segment called tier 2 accounts, and that gives you a lot more sort of insight, right? So if I compare it against tier 2 accounts, it will kind of compute all of the metrics. In fact, for tier 2 accounts, I have the metrics for tier 2 accounts open over here, where you can see that the close rate, which was earlier around 15%, is actually much lower for us for tier 2 accounts. It's only actually 6% for tier 2 accounts, right? So that way you're able to kind of compare the segments. Let's say 19.7% was the close rate for tier 1 accounts. For tier 2 accounts, it's only 5.9%, right? However, the tier 1 accounts actually take longer for us to kind of convert as compared to like tier 2 accounts. So this way you are able to kind of see that you have much better win rates. You're generating more pipeline from your tier 1 accounts as compared to your tier 2 accounts.
No, this is actually mind-blowing. I mean, I'll just take a pause here. So in a sense, we can say I can have two tiers of accounts. So I have one tier accounts where we have separate marketing activities. We have a certain budgets and other thing, and we have certain AEs going after that. one, we can actually immediately tell like what is the kind of performance and pipeline which gets generated. But we can also go further to say like what is the kind of average sales cycle length it takes, what's the kind of closure rate it takes. So this can actually eventually lead to sales planning as well. So if I'm actually giving tier 2 accounts to certain set of AEs, I have a certain expectation in terms of close rates and average sales cycle length, and what's the kind of pipeline which can be created out of it from my marketing campaigns. If it's tier 1, it's also separate. So we can very, very clearly, accurately predict what our pipeline will be as well from this.
Yes. So as long as you're running your business in like different segments, like tier 1 or ICP tier 1, ICP tier 2, ICP tier 3,
any
or
segment
different
which you're
industries.
or US geography, US geography versus India geography, if it is there, and we can compare between segments, what is their deal closure rates, what's their pipeline close rates, etc. And one, get a view of like how marketing contributed to each of these. Second, basically get it back to sales and actually ask them to actually work on these things or work on these metrics and give them targets around these metrics.
Yeah. So for example, North America versus India, we are clearly able to see that our win rates are much higher in North America. Our sales cycle length is actually half in North America rather than India. So you are able to see all of those metrics over here. Imagine having to kind of build this out separately, where you have to kind of look at all of these metrics at a segment level. So if you're looking at North America, India as two different segments, you want to kind of quickly compare how many accounts do you have which are relatively engaged with you. So we have 1,000 accounts which are highly engaged in North America. We have 200 accounts which are highly engaged in India. That gives you a sense of what is the opportunity if you were to run like a specific sort of ABM effort or outbound effort. And you're also able to see, okay, fine, what the ACV like, how much time it take us to close these deals. You're able to kind of report on all of that as well.
Got it.
Right?
That's amazing.
So essentially any sort of segments. So like, for example, this is another segment which says companies which visited our pricing page, right? You can see that our win rate is actually much higher for companies which have visited our pricing page. It's almost like 26%. And I can also see all the, and our sales cycle lengths, which you saw was around like 140 days, etc. Now 140 days is considering like every company, but companies which have shown some interest in terms of checking out some high intent pages on our website, we are literally close those accounts in like 2.5 months, right? So high intent accounts, clearly you are able to kind of close them sooner. But if you consider the overall sort of set of accounts, the sales cycles are longer. So all of this nuance you're able to kind of see. So it natively compares against time. You can then compare against segments, and comparing against segments, I'd say is where the real sort of insight comes out. So you can look at, let's say, territory 1 versus territory 2, or as I said, like industry, region, all of that can be kind of looked at, or accounts which showed a higher intent as compared to accounts which have not kind of done any high intent actions. And you can see how all of these metrics kind of change or compare between these two segments, right? So yeah, I think for going back to where we started with, if you're running integrated campaigns where you have a specific focus on a set of accounts and you're running some very customized, high effort sort of activities towards accounts, it could be marketing activities, it could be sales activities. And if you're struggling to kind of say, what is the business progress that we've achieved? How many accounts have we been able to move into like high engagement? How many leads, how many sales qualified leads at a segment level? Then that's what we are able to now provide sort of out of the box with Factors.
This is great. One thing, maybe it's a little step back, but what all are the data which I can actually bring in to actually see in this to build a segment? So for example, does it include only CRM data? Does it include website plus CRM data? Does it have other data points as well? If you can touch upon that also, is like what are the firmographics or technographics, which all I can actually slice and dice upon the segments, so that how unique can my segments be?
Yeah, so segments, there are three main conditions that can be used to build segments. So the first one is with account property. So this is basically all your firmographic criteria. So this can be, for example, that in HubSpot, the lifecycle stage, or any sort of HubSpot field that you have. So we have 204 properties now. All of that is kind of coming up over here, right? So you can use any sort of HubSpot property to kind of define segments. And these can be defined as either equal to conditions or not equal to conditions. So you can exclude like opportunities or customers and then look at all the other sort of accounts, right? And again, in addition to HubSpot, you get all your NAICS description, revenue range, all of the company firmographic sort of criteria. We have almost 19 properties of that nature. We also pull together a whole bunch of data inside factors like, what was the first channel, last channel, last page URL, first page URL. Has the company ever visited G2? Have we engaged them on LinkedIn? This engagement level is what we compute in terms of the hot, medium, cold, and the engagements, something that we compute. So all of these are additional sort of properties that we automatically kind of keep ready for every sort of account to kind of use, right? So this is all account properties where you can select sort of specific fields. Then comes the performed criteria. So here you can apply filters to say account should have done some specific action. So in this case, for example, should have gone to the pricing page in the current quarter, right? And again, going to the pricing page is one example. Instead of going to the pricing page, you can say should have looked at alternatives on G2. That could be another one. Or you can say should have submitted a form in HubSpot. We use HubSpot for our CRM, and you can then filter by saying the form title should be like a specific sort of form title, right? So if you're running webinars and you want to look at people who registered for a webinar, and likewise, instead of HubSpot, if you're using Salesforce, all your Salesforce campaign membership kind of comes up over here as well. So if you wanted to look at all the accounts which registered for a webinar or downloaded an ebook or came to your booth at Dreamforce or something like that, you can easily do that, right? So again, if you spend like a few $100,000 on like a Dreamforce booth and you want to kind of track what was the sort of ROI from that, you just have to build a segment in factors of saying accounts which were scanned at our Dreamforce booth and what's the sort of eventual outcome from those accounts, and you'd be able to kind of do that. Right? So it's pretty extensive sort of filtering capabilities. And the last capability is you can say with at least one person in that account which matches, let's say, so you can use this criteria. Have been at least one demo booked from that account. At least one person in that account should have booked demo, or we should have engaged with at least one person with a job title which is VP and above, or something like that, right? So you can essentially filter by at least one person that matches a certain criteria. So these are the sort of filters that we support for building segments.
So in a sense,
and all your data.
In a sense, like I can say, like it's not just data from accounts in my CRM. I can say accounts in my CRM or CRM in a particular property and accounts which match a particular industry or a size or a firmographic segment, plus accounts which have done specific activities, not just in my website, maybe also on G2, which is a third-party review site, or also on LinkedIn or somewhere else, and also where users match a certain property, where like user has come from United States or user has come from a particular property, spend so much time, etc. I can bring all that data, slice and dice it, and create my own custom segment.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah,
that's pretty comprehensive. But as we go, this is technically super, and it also gives so much of possibilities. But as you said, you had released in alpha or a beta version to quite a few customers. What was their reaction? What are the things where they say, like, these are the things I'm going to do with this data, which you have seen?
Yeah, so some of the use cases, I think just to kind of recap was, if you're doing segment marketing, you have different segments, then this becomes like a no-brainer. It becomes a way for you to track progress of all your marketing initiatives, right? So that's kind of one sort of use case. So if you're doing segment marketing, integrated campaigns, then currently this is sort of very hard for people to put together, and we've kind of made it very easy. Another use case is if you want to kind of look at, for example, let's say impact of LinkedIn ads, right? Now, if you wanted to kind of, so traditionally what you look at is, if anybody sees even one ad of yours and then they later convert, then you kind of attribute that pipeline to LinkedIn as a channel. Now, the problem is one ad may be too low for you to kind of say, that ad influenced some business metrics, right? So if you wanted to kind of say accounts which have seen more than 100 impressions or clicked on my ads more than 10 times from LinkedIn, that is the way I kind of say that account has been meaningfully impacted by our ads. So if you want to kind of add a weight to say an account should have at least consumed 10 blogs on our website, right? That is what I would attribute as the impact of content marketing. And again, I'm taking random numbers here in terms of 10, etc. So you are able to build segments like that. So rather than having like saying, oh, they went and saw one blog and then all of that pipeline gets attributed to content marketing, you are able to build a more sort of nuanced understanding of the impact of content, right? So these are the primary use cases that our customers are currently using this for.
Awesome.
Right.
I think as we open to more customers and also as we see, I think the range of possibilities become more extensive because there are of course, proper marketing use cases in terms of segments and in terms of which campaigns are working, which content is working, but there are also sales use cases. And I think given the quality of data from multiple setups, we would be able to see actually like a lot more use cases coming out of this thing and micro use cases coming out of the thing, which both the go-to-market teams, the CS team, and the marketing teams can leverage upon. So that's actually pretty exciting here. And as we speak, we are also now open to questions. We are just trying to wait for the questions to stream in if there is any which can get in as well. But as we wait for questions, in the meanwhile, what has been next to this? I mean, now we have great segments, we have insights to the segments. What do you think would be the next plan, or how do you do this further?
Yeah, so I think in the immediate next few months, we'll be adding more metrics over here. So for example, one request that we've got is just having some web analytics metrics at a segment level to say how many sessions, how much time on the website, how many page views have happened from each of for each of these segments. So that's something that we'll be launching very soon. In addition to that, we have a very deep partnership with LinkedIn and G2. So we'll be adding some very specific metrics related to LinkedIn and G2 as well into this dashboard. So for every segment, you can see like which are the LinkedIn campaigns or which are the G2 pages that really matter for that particular segment. So those are two short-term sort of improvements that we are adding, essentially in terms of more metrics and more sort of reporting at a segment level.
Got it. That's great. And this is more of a customary question, which I'm asked to ask as an interviewer generally. What about the AI part of it? Is there anything downstream which we plan on the AI side as well?
So in addition to the just simple reporting on metrics, so what we are also working on is some notion of explaining what does it take to convert accounts in the segment, right? So what in another sort of 3 months, what we should hopefully have, I'm just giving you like a visual or a view of what that would look like is for this particular segment, we'd be able to say that on the average, or it would take at least, you should engage at least 4 users and they should be visiting your website at least 7 times and seeing your LinkedIn ads at least 50 times for you to have a meaningful sort of conversion rate, right? So we'd actually be analyzing all of this data and coming up with a recipe to say to attack this segment, this is what you should be doing, right? Or to drive more success in this segment, what you should be focusing on are these channels, these blogs, and you should at least engage with 4 users and get them to the website at least X number of times. That is when you can expect success for this segment, right? So that will be an AI powered sort of analysis capability. We are already working on it. I expect we are around 3 months away from actually launching it.
Good. That's pretty amazing. And we have Yatharth asking for the recording. Yes, the recording would be available, Yatharth. We'll surely make it available both in our YouTube channel and also the transcript in our blog. And thank you. We are also very excited to showcase this feature to you and make it available for listening. Just check if there's any other questions so far. We haven't had any more questions, but this is very, very, very exciting, Praveen. As a salesperson, I can see multiple ways to package this and take it to the market as well, because it's been we can really see that this is something very unique in the market, but most importantly, super useful for both marketers and sales folks to actually analyze their data, first party, second party data, build segments, and actually see the revenue impact or the pipeline impact at each and every level, so that it helps them make more experiments with confidence. So thanks a lot for bringing this out into the market, and great, guys. Thanks. And I think we are just on time. We'll just close this webinar. LinkedIn Live.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending. And please do feel free to shoot me a LinkedIn message or an email if there are any questions on this. So yeah, happy to chat. Happy to have like a more detailed discussion as well.
Yeah, we are all active on LinkedIn. We have the Factors LinkedIn page. We also, Praveen and I both are pretty active on LinkedIn. We have our LinkedIn profiles as well. We'll drop that in. And please connect with us if there is anything which we can clarify or talk about, or even just generally catch up for insights. We are more than willing to do it. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.